Hello and welcome. I'm Leigh-Ann Gerrans and you're watching W News Extra, broadcasting live from the Al Arabiya studios. These are our top stories. Zohran Mamdani is elected mayor of New York City, addressing his biggest critic, President Trump, in his victory speech. Meanwhile, Trump blames the government shutdown for the Democrats' success as it enters its 36th day, the longest closure in American history. And shaking up the curriculum, schools in England announced AI and finance lessons to prepare children for the future. Now, Zohran Mamdani is the new mayor of New York City after beating independent Andrew Cuomo and Republican Curtis Sliwa. The 34-year-old becomes the first Muslim mayor and the youngest person over a century to lead the largest city in the United States. President Trump, who has been critical of Mamdani, reacted to the win, writing on Truth Social. And so it begins. But Mamdani addressed Trump directly during his victory speech with the words, "In this moment of political darkness, New York will be the light." Take a listen.
Tonight, against all odds, we have grasped it. The future is in our hands. My friends, we have toppled a political dynasty. Tonight, you have delivered a mandate for change, a mandate for a new kind of politics, a mandate for a city we can afford, and a mandate for a government that delivers exactly that. To every New Yorker, whether you voted for me, for one of my opponents, or felt too disappointed by politics to vote at all, thank you for the opportunity to prove myself worthy of your trust. So, Donald Trump, since I know you're watching, I have 4 words for you. Turn the volume up.
To discuss this and all of today's stories, I'm joined by writer and broadcaster Esther Quirky, who's in Florida, and Dr. Ellie Al-Hindi, chairperson of the Department of Security and Strategic Studies at the University in the Emirates, with me in the studio. Dr. Ellie, let's start with you. Let's turn the volume up, is what Mamdani said. What's your reaction to this win that's been so international, it's grabbed everyone's attention around the world?
Well, definitely the volume needs to be up in the sense that we need to hear, we need to see and understand what happened. I think there was a nice feeling about all that campaign, the way it was ran, the person himself, what he represents in terms of age, in terms of religion, in terms of being an unapologetic socialist, and he calls himself as such, not only a Democrat, but clearly within that branch of the Democrats that are clearly pushing for a strong socialist agenda. All this is to be noticed, all this is to be studied, and we're seeing more and more young people getting more driven by campaigns that speak to them, that speak their language, that use the social media, that goes back to the essence of democracy, of somehow a door-to-door knock, or at least social media posts that reach every single individual in that sense. All this is to be noticed and to be pointed out. Now, on the other side of the coin, I think this socialist rhetoric, in my opinion, it doesn't have a place in today's America, let alone in today's world altogether, and even more so in New York, a city that is the biggest city in the US, a city that has a strong capitalist heritage, a city that is founded on so many values that socialism kind of goes against. And then all these promises that is really, really difficult to deliver on. I think this is going to blow in his face soon enough. I think he will not be able to deliver on all the promises that he said, or that he said he will, in all that sense. This definitely puts us in front of a big question mark. Where is the Democratic Party heading altogether? If only this kind of candidates that are somehow extreme left socialist candidates are the ones who are pulling the people to the voter stands, is this the trend that the Democratic Party is going to take altogether? And will this work on a national size election?
Yeah, exactly. There's so many questions that need to be answered, but undoubtedly his campaign that reached the youth and got them out voting was what got him the job.
Indeed.
But Esther, let's talk a little bit, because New Jersey and Virginia also opted for Democratic governors, and that was last night. Do you think that we're witnessing a political comeback here when we look at the blue states?
One of the reasons why you saw particularly Virginia turn blue in this latest election cycle is because of the government shutdown and the large number of federal employees that actually live in Virginia and New Jersey, and many of whom were obviously incentivized to come out and vote because they've probably been without a salary for the last few weeks. So that was already kind of baked into the cake. We have to remember that a lot of these federal employees were already furloughed. When DOGE was going through its kind of analysis of government spending and basically highlighting some of the most ridiculous things that successive administrations have spent money on, some of which includes sort of transing frogs in the Central African Republic, for example. I mean, something as ridiculous as that. So these are people that have either been unemployed for quite a while or most recently are facing the brunt of the government shutdown. Now, with regards to Mamdani, I don't think it's a similar trend that you're seeing. This is quite a unique microcosm of American political society in that he got out a lot of people, a lot of young voters that weren't even registered Democrats. So if you remember at the start of his campaign last year, he was actually telling a lot of his voter base to go and register as Democrats. So it was kind of this gray space within the demographic landscape for voters where you had mainly young, disillusioned voters that are living in a city like New York that, cannot imagine owning property, that are facing sky-high housing costs, which actually, when polled, Americans across the board, housing costs is the number one concern for them. And then you also have this kind of Gen Z-ish, really charismatic young mayor. He doesn't have any administrative experience, which actually matters when you're inheriting a city that has a $120 billion budget. But that was inconsequential because many young voters, particularly in New York, feel like the establishment and the status quo has failed them. And so they're willing to take a chance with this man. It's important to remember that there are many parallels that I would personally draw between Mamdani and Sadiq Khan in London, especially because I've just come back from New York and it is a horrible, horrible city. It is filthy. There are many drug-addled and mentally unwell individuals everywhere. The public transportation is filthy and not great. It's extremely expensive. And many of the problems that I'm seeing with London, it looks like it's happening in New York. And I can only imagine they'll be exacerbated under Mamdani's mayoralty. So I don't really see the parallels with what happened in Virginia and New Jersey with Mamdani, but it is something to bear in mind, this kind of grey voter base of young, disillusioned voters that are really swinging the polls.
And you know what, Dr. Ellie, there's a good point to be had here because Mamdani has come in and, like Esther said, he has no previous experience at all in any sort of government role. Now he is the mayor of New York and he's promising free buses, he's promising free supermarkets, rent freezes. It all just seems like it's too good to be true.
That's because it is. It says when something looks like too good to be true, it usually is. I think he needs a huge amounts of funds to be able to deliver on these promises, and these are simply not available. And if they are available in New York, it is in the rich people of New York, it's in the businessmen of New York who will not be willing to cooperate with such a rhetoric that is extremely socialist, extremely anti-capitalist. So why would they cooperate with a mayor that is targeting them first and foremost? Without them, I don't think he will be able to deliver on his promises. And then, as Esther is saying, the city is becoming unlivable in a way, and thus we will see, like we saw from California, people leaving. People who are searching for some basic security, people who are looking for, a normal lifestyle, they will start leaving these big cities. And eventually we saw California drop in the number of seats in the House, and I think it could possibly happen with New York altogether, which brings us to the general elections. And I don't believe that these microcosmos, as Esther mentioned them, will necessarily have the same impact or the same reflection on the national vote, because people vote local differently than they vote national.
But Esther, just a quick thought. This was really a grassroots movement, if you want to look at it, in New York from that aspect. And it seems like the young people have a lot of momentum. Is this a nightmare for Donald Trump right now, looking at what's happening in New York? Because we know that when the youth come out, they can almost galvanize and cause the shift like we have seen.
Or is it who gets the independence will win?
Yes, exactly. I think the independence is more of that, which young people are part of. But independents make up a larger proportion of voters here in the US than in most parts of the developed world. It is a concern, obviously, but the bigger concerns is, next year's midterm elections and Trump not making good on his promises, job growth not being as strong as expected, wage growth not being where people expect, inflation coming down, seeing the economy get back and running, and also, giving young people a sense of hope. So housing costs going down in major cities, or at least keeping up with keeping in line with people's wages. These are the more important core things: security, national security, opportunities, those sorts of things. I think the youth in New York have particularly unique gripes that may not necessarily map across the rest of the country, but Trump does have a big task ahead, yes.
Well, thank you so much for your thoughts on that, Dr. Ellie and Esther. Stay right there as we move on to another story now. And the US government shutdown has entered its 36th day today, making it the longest closure in American history. It all started on the 1st of October over a new funding deal in Congress, and it's left thousands of federal workers without pay and millions of Americans without essential services. Speaking earlier, President Trump said the shutdown was a big factor in yesterday's elections. Take a listen.
Last night, it was not expected to be a victory. It was very Democrat areas, but I don't think it was good for Republicans. I don't think it was good. I'm not sure it was good for anybody. But we had an interesting evening, and we learned a lot. If you read the pollsters, the shutdown was a big factor, negative for the Republicans. And that was a big factor. And we must get the government back open soon, and really immediately. We have to get it open. It's time for Republicans to do what they have to do, and that's terminate the filibuster. It's the only way you can do it.
There we go, Esther. Donald Trump talking there exactly about the shutdown. You are, of course, in the United States at the moment. What have you witnessed from the shutdown that's now the longest in history? And we can't forget the last longest one was in Donald Trump's first term.
Yes, exactly. So I think this kind of gridlock has been kind of baked into the cake, certainly for previous administrations, but certainly we were expecting that for Trump's administration, especially with how divided the Republicans and the Democrats are at the moment. Few concessions have been made. I mean, the main gripe over this was obviously subsidies for Medicaid, which need to be renewed in the first week of December. This was obviously going to be a sticking point for the Democrats, because the kinds of people that tend to be affected by this are poorer voters in urban areas that actually depend on these sorts of healthcare subsidies, health insurance subsidies. And we've seen a little bit of movement on the Democratic side to try and get that going. But obviously, most people are blaming this latest shutdown on the Republicans. Now, if it goes into next week, where air traffic controllers, who are federal employees, will be affected, then you'll likely see, cancellations of flights and real-time carnage that for the last 30 days, many people have been insulated from. We saw the kinds of people that were being furloughed, which Donald Trump actually wanted to fire anyway. So like education, federal education employees and the likes. But now you're tipping into territory of really essential workers like air traffic controllers, which would, I think, really hurt the Republicans' reputation with the public. And that being said,
oh, sorry, Esther, I was saying what's really interesting is the last shutdown, I remember covering that, and what actually ended that was the outcry over air traffic controllers not coming to work and the absolute chaos it had at airports.
Definitely.
Exactly. So this is a ticking time bomb, and there has to be some concessions made within the next couple of days, or else people are not going to forget this. And we've already seen federal workers in Virginia basically tipping the polls to the Democrat governor winning yesterday and the latest election. So the Republicans had the cards to begin with, and while many people have yet been insulated from the worst effects of the shutdown, it's going to start happening. It's going to start happening soon. And I think now the pressure is on for the Republicans to really get the gear moving. And I think in some ways that's benefiting the Democrats.
Dr. Ellie, end in sight here. What do you think? Because Donald Trump is sort of pressed the nuclear option today. He's saying the only way we can stop this is to terminate the filibuster, not enter conversations with the Democrats.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the answer?
Well, I think, first of all, terminating or ending the filibuster is something that is extremely difficult, that both parties have used, that's so integral to the U.S. system and how all the discussions happen. It's part of the tradition, it's part of the politics. So I don't think getting rid of it is really an option that is feasible. On the other hand, we saw the majority leader saying that he thinks that things are getting close to an off-ramp and that it is possible to have a breakthrough in the horizon. This tells us that, as you said, and as Esther was mentioning, now the pressure is flipped. Now the pressure is on the Republicans because they did feel the heat of it in the elections and because they are being blamed as the party who is in power or in government. On the other hand, the Democrats now are somehow empowered, somehow emboldened by the elections results, and I think they will be less willing to negotiate. Although, again, as Esther said, some things they have given up on some significant things. So maybe a deal is more feasible, but let's see of how much are they willing to actually push it through that last mile, which could be as difficult as all the negotiations before. It could continue long, but again, when things start to affect everyday's life of every American citizen, nobody can afford to do that, and every senator, every House representative will be thinking about his upcoming elections.
And you know, Esther, I was just having a look at some polling figures before our show, and an NBC poll from Sunday found 52% of registered voters blamed the president and the Republicans for the shutdown. We're also seeing that Donald Trump's approval rating is not as good as it once was. Why is public mood shifting in the States towards Donald Trump? It was very, very jubilant, but 9 months in, he seems to be struggling slightly.
Yeah, I mean, inflation is still one of those sticking points that has unfortunately stuck. So inflation in the US is still relatively high. We're not seeing the kind of job creation that we're expecting 9 months in. Now, of course, these policies have a time lag and it takes a while. But public mood has been shifting because while Donald Trump has secured some wins, particularly internationally, particularly when it comes to the Middle East, on the domestic front, it's not been as smooth sailing. Obviously, the Epstein files and, kind of playing whodunit and am I really going to release it? The answer is no. That didn't really bode well, particularly with the Republican base, with the MAGA base, who were really adamant that they wanted to see those files, whatever is in them. So he has had some sort of domestic PR issues. And look, at the end of the day, this boils down to is the economy. Like Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. And that's what people are looking to. They're looking to see the kinds of wage growth and investment in the country that they've been promised. The whole tariff debacle, which is now making its way through the courts, and the federal and Trump's attorney is actually testifying in front of the Supreme Court over the next few days. It looks chaotic, and it doesn't look to have got the kinds of wins or the gains that Trump's rent-seeking from allies and foes alike around the world has promised to be. So look, there's a lot riding on it. I think between now and May, when really we're going to actually be expecting to see some progress, both on tariffs, on inflation, on job creation, on wage growth, and all of that, is really going to decide whether people are going to, swing back and the pendulum is going to swing towards the Democrats once again, particularly for the midterms later on next year.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because a lot of that economic data, like jobs data, we can't get during the shutdown, so people don't have such a big scope of the economy at the moment. But thanks for your thoughts on that, Dr. Ellie and Esther. Let's move on. And online retail giant Shein has opened its first physical store in Paris today, despite an ongoing investigation over a controversial doll sold on their platform. Protesters have been gathering outside the BHV department department store over the adult entertainment product, Shein say they are cooperating fully with authorities. Dr. Eddy, there's a lot going on here when it comes to Shein, and it has faced this massive backlash like I've just seen in France. Do you think the company is handling this well?
I think so far they have. It's a textbook reaction of a multinational in that sense. They have, I'm sure, the best PR people and the best lawyers in that sense. But again, the reaction is all very positive. We are willing to cooperate. We are willing to suspend immediately all third-party listing in order to avoid any kind of misunderstanding like the one that happened. And definitely this, as they said, will allow them to strengthen the accountability, ensure every product meets the standards and legal obligations and so on. And again, the CEO said we are committed to working with the French authorities to address any concerns swiftly. So again, it's very textbook reaction. It's a very good reaction, very positive, very cooperative. Will this be enough to launch this physical store? First, the question is, do you need a physical store? When you're doing so well online, when you have been built on the idea of being an online store, why do you need a physical store? I don't really understand that, but then again, I'm not a business person. They might have specific drive to do that. But then we have to remember that any physical presence will put you under the jurisdiction of national authorities, and then this will put you under, again, so many criticism and so many accountability for different rules that may not apply online or in China, where Shein is from, or so on. So definitely they need to switch into a different modum operandi of how to do business in a local national authority under national laws. If they manage to do that, definitely the store, it seems, has its own popularity and its own people who love it and who always shop from it. So they would be there for it.
It's quite interesting because today we had a correspondent in Paris and he was outside of that opening of that store and the queues were around the block. It was very long. Esther...
But on the other hand, you have the protests.
Exactly.
So on one line the queues and one on the protests.
And this is what you're saying, you know, taking it from online into a country is a very different story.
Yeah, definitely.
Esther, industry critics also argue that fast fashion shouldn't be allowed space on the high street or in these big department stores. And like Dr. Ellie was just saying, do they need this physical store?
Yeah, I mean, on the kind of fast fashion controversy, it's basically rooted in modern slavery practices. There are actually more slaves present now than there has been in any other time in history. And I think people underestimate just how much modern slavery practices permeate all aspects of our lives, from clothing to certain types of infrastructure development and all sorts of modern consumer goods. So it actually permeates many aspects of most people's lives. But for Shein, this strategy kind of makes sense. Now, Shein is low cost, low budget clothes. Obviously, they've had controversy around, worker practices and certain regions of China that have drummed up international controversy. But it's also important to look at the viability of a brand like Shein. Shein basically targets young women between the ages of, let's say, 18 to 22, which is quite of a short window space, who don't have a lot of money and who want to splash 30 or 40 pounds on clothes for a holiday in Ibiza. Now, when you expand that, that means that they really have a short capture period of getting customers to buy their really cheap clothes. This kind of positioning in the market doesn't allow them to target the higher end, more luxury customers, but it also means that they have to keep doing their strategy, which, as someone who works in SEO, was basically buying loads of ads and spamming the kind of online market space, so that you basically crowd out competitors like River Island, like ASOS, like Boohoo, and all of these other kind of competitive and comparative brands. This is not a long-term strategy in the age of AI and ChatGPT, where online searches are a lot more tailored to the consumer. So if you're wanting to buy black tights, for example, ChatGPT might ask you, do you want black tights with a certain type of design? In which case that will filter out what you want, as opposed to Google just showing which companies have been able to pay to get to trick the algorithm and get their products at the top. So this is what people need to understand. As a strategy, this is kind of securing Shein's long-term viability, but also opening different customer bases that for a long time have just not been interested. I haven't shopped on Shein in years because once I got to a certain stage in my life, I didn't want to buy cheap stuff online that will basically be destroyed after 2 washes.
And sometimes we do change our mind as we get older, don't we, Dr. Ellie? But Shein, I just want to add something then. They've always denied using slave labour. But like Esther said, is it time really for them to diversify as things become more and more sophisticated online?
I think they will continue to have their own customers and their own, let's say, clientele that would still want what they are buying, they are selling. Otherwise, they wouldn't be surviving and flourishing as much as they are, even though we are growing out of it, but maybe they will continue to have definitely new generations that are into the stuff they sell. If not, it will die alone normally. But again, it's not only about slavery, it's about, are we able to regulate shopping online and what's on that and who posts and who buys and where the money transactions and all of these stuff. This is becoming a serious challenge for any economy and for any ethical components, be it adult material, be it slavery, be it environmentally safe ways, all these kinds of stuff. It is extremely difficult to control what is being sold online in general.
Yeah, and I don't know, Esther, but it's also difficult for us to shop in it because I feel like even if I don't want anything, if I talk about it and it comes up, I just get spammed all the time and it becomes really stressful. It's like my phone's listening to me, it's tracking everything that I'm doing, it's tracking the shops I'm walking past. I don't know if you and Dr. Ellie find that, but I feel like it's non-stop when it comes to adverts.
Yeah, and I think there's a psychology behind it, which is the more you bombard people with adverts, the more they're actually attuned to blocking it out. This idea of kind of crowding people with all sorts of adverts and spams and pop-ups actually ends up having the opposite effect. And that's why in Google, for example, they actually penalize spam-like behavior or behavior that looks like it's just trying to crowd out competitors and basically not consumer-friendly practices that Google says. So instead of answering people's queries, like if you sell blue shirts and someone Googles blue shirts, that's what pops up. It's, you know, you follow them with cookies and then you put out products that's not necessarily tailored to what someone would inquire. Google's algorithm has become quite sophisticated in crawling through sites that behave in anti-consumer practices. And I suspect that's what Shein might be seeing. We don't know their books, obviously, but this strategy makes sense to try and consolidate a brand that's more than just cheap stuff online and doing what Fashion Nova is doing, for example, paying influencers on Instagram, trying to tap into demographics that were not necessarily available to them. And I think AI will make it more difficult for them to reach in the future.
Esther, but it's working for them and for their clientele. I mean, they're doing very well, right? So it's obviously working somehow with some people. I think they were doing
better. I mean, I was the stereotypical Shein shopper. I haven't thought about Shein in a few years. None of my friends have bought off Shein. I mean, it's become a bit of a joke now. Actually, there's a meme culture around Shein. Like, if you.
But then a younger version of you is now shopping heavily on Shein, right? Or a younger person?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think I'm still, the younger version of me is still poor.
Do you know what? I was just thinking about this. I've only ever shopped on Shein once, I must say this. And the dress I bought was see-through. And I was like, well, I'm not 20 going to Ibiza anymore, so it's still in my closet, you know, because you don't know what you're going to get. It's all a big gamble because it's online.
Yeah.
So maybe the physical store, you can go and check the fabric is,
least, yes.
you know, somewhat for the you know, slightly classier lady.
For the bombardment of advertisement, one of the platforms, no need to mention which one, you know, they give you the option if you don't like this ad.
Yes.
So I've clicked on that same ad so many times. I don't like this ad. This ad is offensive. This ad is not. And still this ad comes up more often than usual.
Name and shame them, Dr. Ellie. But Esther and Dr. Ellie, thank you so much. Stay right there as we move on to another story now. And schools in England could be given new lessons in AI and finances as part of a curriculum shake-up. Primary school children will be taught how to spot fake news and misinformation, as well as learning about mortgages and money. The UK government hope it will prepare young people for the future, giving them the skills they need to thrive as the world evolves. Esther, is this a good idea from the UK government? Will it be better prepared for when children go into adulthood with this new sort of system they're thinking about bringing in?
Yeah, I mean, these reforms are quite a bit of a mixed bag. So there are obviously some positive things like teaching young people about personal finance, AI, how to integrate that into your life since AI is here to stay, checking for misinformation and actually doing research to make sure that things that you're reading online are from verified sources, which is something I totally advocate for. And I believe in treating news media and information-based media as a public good. These are all very positive things. But then you have the flip side, which is, reducing exam time by 10% across the board because they think exams are too strenuous. And I think that disadvantages a certain type of learning and intelligence, which is, if you're being tested on something on the spot, it's a different skill set that is being examined than having coursework at the end of the term where you had months or weeks to work on something and really kind of put together your knowledge in an elaborate form, but it doesn't really test your on-the-spot knowledge. If you have someone that says, I'm a chef, they should be able to tell you within 30 seconds how to boil an egg. If they need to have months of dissertation style research and writing to do that, then they don't actually have a thorough grasp of the subject matter at hand. And I think this is something that the government is underestimating. It shouldn't just be based on the stresses of a student. Being a student is stressful. All aspects of life, all endeavors in life is stressful. It's about preparing people for the real world. And I think there's some things that you just have to know. There's some like basic maths, English, literacy, sciences, and all of that. But again, like I said, there are some really, really positive things here, like, making triple science the standard for all science education in GCSEs, I think is excellent, because you then prepare young people if they want to take a science at A levels when they're 16 and 17 and 18, and if they change their mind and suddenly get an interest in science and tech, they can do that without having to change schools or wait another year. So it is a mixed bag, but overall, I think it's in a positive direction.
Dr. Ellie, I feel like you're the person to talk to about this.
Well,
because you yourself,
somehow
you teach. You're a doctor, professor. You're better at this than I could ever be. But new English and maths tests are also being introduced. But Esther was saying there, is it dumbing down? Is this a worry that we're not going to have so many exams, so many hours, and children aren't facing the pressure? Because I'm telling you something, if there's any kids watching this, it's much harder to be an adult than to do an exam in school.
Yeah, that's true. They're not gonna have it any easier when they grow up. But definitely, I agree a lot with what Esther was saying. It's important to rethink education as we know it, as we had it when we were children. Things are completely different today. We need to approach things in a different way. There's so much awareness about how much testing itself could stress students out with the preparation, especially if it's a government testing and a nationwide testing and so on. And definitely we have been moving away from testing into more practical stuff as much as possible on all levels, including university where I teach. Definitely, I think dumbing it down too much is going to take us into the wrong direction. Giving students too much choice is going to confuse them. I think we need to have the basics, especially in the early age education, to have the people knowledgeable about all the things they need to be aware of. And then as they grow older, I think the Australian system has a very good way into the older they get, the more choice they have. And eventually they end up presenting the HSC or the Year 12 exam with only the 4 or 5 subjects that they have selected to remain with them. So it already guides them into having a bit more specialized and to dropping things that they are not good at or simply don't like it. But again, we need to have all of this, the component of AI, and how does it impact education? Because if we rely, for example, on research papers, now research papers are being done on AI. If we rely on home assignments are now being done on AI. So I guess we need to have back in-class assignments as much as possible, as much practical components. I love the fact that they're going to teach them about mortgage, about finance, about fake news, about different life skills. Critical thinking is such a key component that we lack in our students today. Public communication, public speaking, such an important thing. Whatever you're going to be doing in life, you're going to need this. Which brings me to the 2 items that the UK said they will keep and they will increase, which are the English and the math. I do believe English is a necessity for all through. or language skills, put it in the broader sense, depending on the country. And math, I think if we're going into the life skills math and not the detailed algebra or other stuff, this is definitely something that each one of us is going to be doing, whether he's an engineer or a lawyer or even a university professor or whatever. You're going to need these skills along with all the life skills that the school can possibly equip you with.
Yeah, but it's just fascinating, isn't it, how much the world has changed.
Indeed.
And how much
Indeed.
it's changing so rapidly when it comes to AI and how it's now going to evolve even the workplace for younger people.
It's really a question that we're struggling with as instructors every day at the university to try to find ways of how to combine the proper usage of AI while keeping the standards of education. It's really a challenge.
Dr. Ellie and Esther, thank you so much. Now, it's that time of the show where Dr. Ellie and Esther have chosen their quirkiest story of the day. And we're actually going to start with Dr. Ellie's. And Dr. Ellie, I want to talk to yours because tell us about the top signs of a true gentleman. Esther, I don't know, we were going to quiz you, but we're not 100. Do we have the quiz out? We've got some things here. So, Dr. Ellie, do you write prompt and pithy thank you letters?
I do write thank you notes whenever it's needed. I do write thank you notes after a nice meeting, after a nice dinner. Yes, I do that.
Okay, so there's 39 points in this. Can you tell us how many points you got?
Well, I will definitely get more than 20 to up to 25 on these 39 points, not because I am, I think I am a gentleman, but I truly believe that every man, in this proper sense of the term, needs to have these qualities. I mean, we're talking about things that are so basic, like, for example, listening more than speaking. This is such a nice quality in every person, especially if it's a man. He doesn't make a big fuss about, restaurant order or about which airways he takes. He doesn't make a fuss about food. He can simply boil an egg and have a quick dinner. He doesn't take anything too seriously in the sense of making a big problem out of it. Doesn't drive a Tesla. This is such a key thing.
Doesn't drive a Tesla?
Yes. You need to be, come on. A gentleman cannot drive a Tesla. That's known.
Well, a Rolls Royce, a Bentley.
Knows when to call it a night. I think this is also a very key point. Is comfortable speaking in public, as we were saying.
Yes.
Again, maybe I don't agree with all the 39, and some of them are quite too specific. But again, in general, I think it's good to remember what makes a gentleman, and it's good to have a list somewhere to test yourself to it. And I do believe that men and women in our society still appreciate a gentleman's behavior in that sense. So all of this was, again, just to tell our viewers that it was done by the Country Life magazine, and it was done by an etiquette expert to try to put this list together. I like it. I like it a lot.
I like this list too, but it seems like a lot of pressure, doesn't it, Esther? And I also like this one. I wanted to ask Dr. Ellie, what is it? Do you wear a tank top to the gym?
I don't.
No, he doesn't. Maybe he's a true gentleman.
I don't. Maybe because I don't go to the gym enough, but there's nothing about that in the list. Let's keep it at that.
And then, Esther, let's move on to
Let me ask Esther, do you agree, Esther, that these are the qualities of a gentleman?
Oh, yeah,
Would you like to have
so.
such a person in your life?
Exactly. I mean, wearing a tank top to the gym is a different type of gentleman, in my opinion.
But I do find it fascinating because it does seem like a lot of work to be a true gentleman.
Not really. It's a way of life. It's not. You don't make the effort of it. It's either you are a gentleman or you're not. You don't need to make the effort for it.
Okay, Dr. Ellie, the true gentleman. Now let's talk about yours, Esther, because it's about a furloughed federal worker who's taken on a new career. Tell us more.
Wow.
Yeah, so a furloughed federal tax attorney has decided to sell hot dogs in Washington, D.C. He calls it Shyster's Dogs. And it's basically, I mean, it's kind of brilliant. It's kind of the most legal scam in Washington, D.C., which is what he calls it. And he's feeling the pinch as alongside the other furloughed employees that are victims of or collateral damage of this gridlock between the Democrats and Republicans. I'm quite surprised that he was allowed to work during furlough, but America has such a liberal employment laws that why should they really stop him? It's not his fault that the Democrats and Republicans can't seem to see eye to eye on anything. And it's kind of brilliant. Now, would I choose to eat dubious meat from a van by the side of the road? Definitely not, and certainly not in any major American city. But if he's making it work, then good for him.
Dr. Ellie and Esther, I see he's in a really smart suit there. Maybe, Esther, you could eat his meat because he's a gentleman by the looks of it, so it won't be too dubious.
And he's not touching the food with his hands. Look at that.
I know looks can be deceiving. I don't eat food from vans. That's my general, which is interesting because I would eat like food off of like a street vendor in Thailand.
Yeah.
But I have a huge mistrust of van food in major cities around the Western world. I don't know why.
But again, is he making it simply a statement to be with his suit as a public servant, selling hot dogs on the street just to make a living because of the shutdown?
I think he's actually making a living, and I think Americans can respect the hustle.
I absolutely love the hustle. I was just thinking that while I was watching him. It's brilliant, isn't it? Don't hate the player, hate the game. I heard Esther say that earlier, and it was something that I used to love to say and I've forgotten about it. So thanks to today's guest, writer and broadcaster Esther Quirky, who joined us from Florida, and Dr. Ellie El-Hindi, chairperson of the Department of Strategic and Studies at the American University in the Emirates. I'm sorry, Dr. Ellie, I think I slightly got that
That's
title
fine.
wrong.
That's fine.
Apologies. And that's all from us on W News Extra. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Of course, follow us on X. GNT is coming up next. Goodbye and thank you.